I'm sitting here in the office with in Mark Rippetoe's office here at Wichita Falls Athletic Club, and I've had the opportunity to know Rip for many years. So he's written a book, Starting Strength, and written a couple other books.
Well, Starting Strength in its third edition right now. Third edition came out in November, late November of 2011, and sales of the third edition are coming along real nicely. The second edition and first editions combined sold over 100,000 copies. So I think we've made a decent little penetration into the exercise market. The whole idea was to show people that barbell training is not as daunting and complicated as everybody seems to think it is. It's the most effective way to train, but the rumor previously was that, well, it's too complicated, you have to have a coach, and there's not any coaches, and nobody knows how to do it, and if you know how to do it, it's wonderful, but it's too complicated to mess with, you'll get hurt, all this other bullshit, and it's just not, it's not the case.
Right, right.
It's not the case. It's approachable by everybody. We've got old people, little kids, everybody in the world can train with barbells if you just use a simple method of instruction that we provide in the book. And I think that a lot of people have come to the realization that barbell training makes more sense than anything else, and it's the best way to get strong.
Right. I can attest to that coming into the gym. Because a lot of times people look at what they think about, black iron gym like this, that everybody's going to be all just, jacked up and screaming and yelling, and there's certainly some of that.
I wish that were the case. Here we are in Wichita Falls. We got about 40 members.
Right, right. Well, maybe they're not as educated out there as they should be. But I also say when I come in and I'm working out with a doc who is 20 years my senior, and he's pushing the same prowler weight that I am and doing more pull-ups than I can do. I'm like, wow, this system works. This shit works. That guy went from that 2 months ago to...
We have proven over the years that, in fact, this does work. It just works. It works for everybody because it is merely a logical, methodical approach to the equation of stress, adaptation.
Right.
Stress, adaptation.
Right.
Because exercise works through producing an adaptation. That adaptation is facilitated by the stress applied to the body. If the stress is progressive,
right,
then the adaptation is progressive. And it's not a complicated,
right,
concept to master, but you have to understand that if you don't force the adaptation to occur, it won't.
Right, right.
It has to be forced to occur.
It is the perfect example of if you do the same thing you've always done, you get the same thing you've always done.
Yeah. Just exactly. If you go into the gym, and every time you go into the gym, you walk over to the bench press and lay down and load 135 on it and do a couple sets to failure, and then put 185 on it and do a set to failure, and then put 2 1/4 on it and get 3 or 4 reps, and every time it's the same, duh.
Yeah, that's all you're ever going to be able to do.
Duh. You haven't programmed your exercise in order to generate a fresh, new amount of stress. Therefore, there's no new adaptation. And this is just, you don't have to be a physicist to understand this stuff. It's just a methodical approach to the loading.
Right.
We don't use, see, this is the other thing, we don't use enormous numbers of exercises. We use about 8 exercises. It's all you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
What varies is the load.
Right, right.
The load, the intensity, the frequency, the volume. All these things about those 8 exercises are what vary, not the exercises themselves. You don't need to do anything for legs except squat.
Right.
You don't need to do anything for legs except squat. And if you do things for legs except squat, you're losing sight of the idea that the adaptation must drive, the stress must drive the adaptation. Mm-hmm. Squat is perfectly adequate in order to drive the adaptation. You just have to know how to apply the stress in a way that causes the adaptation. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And guess what you do? You do sets of 5 with a little bit more weight every time until that doesn't work.
Right.
And it'll work for a long time.
Right, right. Yeah. we were talking about the novice effect. I think that's what you call it.
Yes.
The novice effect. And so how does that work? How can even people who are already strong but haven't trained their strength, just genetically strong, or people who...
There are people who are genetically stronger than others. We're all familiar with freaks that walk in off the street that are just big, strong guys.
Right.
Grew up on a farm, corn-fed, big old stout guys that may or may not have ever gone through the process of producing new stress, causing an adaptation, and doing this linear increase. Those guys start off just exactly like everybody else does, except that their baseline is higher.
Right.
But the process of adaptation for them is exactly like it is for everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't go through that, then their potential to get that much stronger remains undeveloped.
Right, right.
So the novice effect is merely a way of stating, and this is on my website at startingstrength.com, and if you'll go to the resources page, there is an article under the articles section entitled The Novice Effect that explains this all very thoroughly. The novice effect is the thing that happens when an unstressed body becomes subjected to some type of stress to which it's not already adapted.
Sure.
If you're not adapted to the stress, then the stress causes an adaptation. Mm-hmm. If you're completely unadapted, anything that's above where you are now, which is nothing,
right,
acts as an adaptive stimulus that makes you stronger. In other words, if you're a complete sedentary person, then if you start riding your bicycle, your bench press will go up. Right? Now that doesn't work for more than about a week.
Right.
But it does work at first. Anything that you do that produces a stress that you have heretofore not adapted to will cause an adaptation.
Sure.
Now, it's not optimum, is it? You don't, the optimum way to make your bench press go up is obviously not to ride your bicycle.
Right.
But a lot of people are fooled by this effect. In other words, sure, P90X works. Sure, CrossFit works.
Right.
Sure, anything works for a while.
Right.
To a person who hasn't adapted to anything. But are these methods optimum for building strength? No, they are not.
Right.
Something that requires a strength adaptation is optimum for building strength.
Sure, sure.
Right? You don't run marathons to make your squat go up because that doesn't require strength adaptation.
Right.
So if you come into the gym and we find out where you are on your squats, we like 5s because for various reasons, it's a real good number of reps. We find out where you are, we have you do some 5s at that weight. Next time you come in, go up 10 pounds. You can do it.
Right.
And then next time you come in after that, go up another 10 pounds. Time after that, go up another 10 pounds. Might be getting hard now, so the time after that, go up 5 pounds. And the time after that, go up 5 pounds. Do that on all your exercises until it doesn't work.
Right.
Easy enough, isn't it? In fact, if it gets more complicated than that, it stops functioning in that pure strength adaptation kind of a stress.
You're jacking with it through a...
You're diluting the effect.
Sure.
You're diluting the effect. You're distracting your physiology from producing the strength effect. This muscle confusion shit, you don't want your muscles confused. You want them to know that you want them to get stronger.
Right.
You don't want them to be puzzled by several different types of stimulus. You want them stronger. Now the question really is, and this is the most important question, why do we just want them stronger? Why are we only concerned with strength?
Right, right.
Well, the fact is that strength is the most basic athletic adaptation. Everything else is predicated on strength. If you take two athletes of exactly the same technical skill,
right,
the stronger of those two athletes is the better at that sport.
Correct, yes.
Doesn't matter if it's a strength sport or not. Because strength is the most general type of athletic adaptation.
Right, right.
And you guys that are involved in other types of exercise can argue with this all day long, but the fact remains that strength is the most useful adaptation. It's been proven for millennia that stronger people are more useful in all types of these types of situations.
Right.
All types of athletic situations are more useful because they can generate more force. Because that's what strength is. The ability to generate force against an external resistance.
Right.
That's just in its purest definition, that's what strength means. Your ability to generate force against an object. Right. And that's how we interact with our environment. So if you can generate more force against external resistance, you interact with your environment more effectively. Right. And if you think about it, all the parameters of athletic ability, balance, coordination, endurance, all these other, anything you can think of, there are various lists around. All of those things at their heart really depend on strength. You can see how balance depends on strength.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you guys work with balance all the time. Ask a 75-year-old guy that fell. What happened? He'll say he lost his balance.
Sure.
What is balance? It's your ability to control your body weight.
Hold yourself in position.
Hold yourself in position to keep yourself from falling. It's a function of your ability to generate force against the floor.
Right.
Right? And your body in various positions generates leverage against your balance point. If you are not strong enough to manage that leverage, you will fall on your ass, and it's just a function of strength.
Right.
It's not much of a power. It's obvious how power is a function of strength. Power, the equation is strength over time, force times distance over time.
Right.
Force is the primary thing that you have control over developing, because power and the ability to explode, the kinds of things we test with a vertical jump, are largely genetically determined. Those are largely a function of your genetic endowment. Your central nervous system with a 38-inch vertical is not the same as mine with my little weird-ass 22-inch vertical, or whatever it is now.
Sure.
I'm old and crippled and I can't jump anymore. A person with a 38-inch vertical has not got the same kind of a nervous system as a person with a 22-inch vertical. A person with a 22-inch vertical is never going to have a 38-inch vertical because we're not wired up the same.
Right.
Those people are
You
freaks.
can do it or you can't.
You can either do it or you can't. You might be able to put 25% on your vertical, but that's not the point of the vertical jump test. The point of the vertical jump test is not to get the test better.
Right.
The point of the vertical jump test is to assess the genotype.
Right.
And that's why it's used. It's an assessment of a genotype. Train for the test.
Right.
That's pointless. What we want to know is how explosive are you? How efficient is your nervous system at recruiting motor units? And if your nervous system is extremely efficient at recruiting large numbers of motor units right now, then you are hooked up in a way that is revealed by a vertical jump test. People with high verticals are very, very good at expressing strength quickly. Because power, in the seat of the pants definition, is strength expressed right now.
Sure.
Right now.
Right.
And martial artists want power.
Right.
Because you live and die by exploding.
Right, exploding. Exactly.
Explosion is the whole idea.
All real combative systems are explosive.
All combative systems are explosive. And as a result, all combatives, elite athletes, are explosive people.
Right.
Now, given the fact that you really can't influence the genetics of your nervous system to any appreciable extent,
right,
what is the only way you have to develop power? Get stronger.
Strength.
That is all there is to it.
Right.
If you don't have any strength to express quickly, then your ability to express it quickly is irrelevant.
Right.
But everybody can get strong.
Yeah, it's the only formula.
It's the only one of those things that lends itself to long-term adaptation. You might have noticed that endurance develops rather rapidly.
And goes away.
And goes away. For the same reason, it goes away very rapidly. Because endurance and, stamina, these types of things, are changes in the chemistry within the physiology that's already present. But strength involves architectural changes in the muscles that take a long time to develop.
Right.
You can develop your strength for 20 years.
Yeah, right.
Your endurance develops relatively quickly and goes away relatively quickly. This is what's so silly about people wondering about, well, if I stop my endurance program and I do a strength program for 6 weeks, 6 months, will I get out of shape? It says, yes, you will. Absolutely. Sure. And you'll get back in shape in 3 weeks.
Right, just like that.
And 3 weeks, and you'll be twice as strong as you were before, so what the hell are you worried about?
Right. That comes and goes so easily.
Yes, it comes right back, so don't worry about holding on to it. You can develop it again if you need to.
Right.
We see people that have to pass the PT all the time.
Sure, of course.
Various military expressions of physical testing. And they're always tied to the idea that they have to have this endurance component, and that's from the top down. That's not the guys being stupid. Everybody that's been in combat knows that strength is the more valuable adaptation, not endurance.
Right.
Nobody in Iraq got his ass saved with his 5 mile time.
Right.
Didn't occur.
Didn't happen.
Okay, maybe an isolated instance, but the vast majority of the time, people that talk to me about this, and I hear it a lot,
sure.
Strength is the most useful adaptation in a combat situation. Okay, strength, we know how to develop. Right? We know how to develop strength. Well, that is more valuable to get than a low 5 mile time, because nobody ever got pulled out of a situation with their 5 mile time because it's 2012.
Right.
It's not World War I. So
different game.
Yeah, whole different situation. So military guys have got to, and pretty much they're pretty good at this, at come to grips with the fact that they have to quit worrying about the endurance part of their PT and develop their strength, because endurance part of the PT is accessible in a couple of weeks.
Right. 3 weeks out.
3 weeks out, you run 3 or 4 times and you pass the test, because it's not hard to do.
Right.
But if we double your squat in 4 or 5 months, we have done something, you know, and put 20 pounds of useful body weight on you. We've done something that may save your ass.
Right. Or your buddies.
Or your buddy's ass.
Right. Right.
And that's the terribly critical thing to understand, is that strength is more useful than anything else, because everything depends on strength.
It's the built foundation.
It's the foundation of your ability to interact with your environment is your strength. Your ability to produce force in various situations.
And due to the novice effect, it can get very quick. You can get it very quickly.
This is the good thing about it, because on a properly designed strength program, you develop, like I said just a second ago, we can double your squat in a very short period of time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, you've seen it happen yourself.
Yeah.
We do this all the time. We take people that walk in the door with a 115-pound 3 sets of 5 squat and get them up to 275.
Right.
In the space of 3-4 months' time.
Sure. Right.
Now, what have we done with that individual? That is the most dramatic improvement.
Much more useful.
In a very, very short period of time that individual will ever experience.
Right. And
because it happens so fast.
Right.
And it represents such a giant shift in ability from baseline to that short 4 month period later. And it puzzles me that the armed forces haven't embraced this type of training instead of their silly ass 5 mile run that does it. But you know, you've got generals in there that like to run.
Right.
That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
So.
Now, and another thing about the strength, unlike the cardiovascular or the endurance aspect of it, the strength lasts for a long time.
Yes, because of the same reason it takes so long to build it. You are changing the architecture, the actual structure of the muscle changes. These changes take a long time, but because they are significant protein level, molecular level changes in the contractile protein, they persist a long time.
Sure.
Once you go from 115 3 sets of 5 squat to 275 3 sets of 5 squat, your muscles will never again be the same as they were before you made the change.
Right. You've actually built something.
It's a fundamental. You quit training after 4 months, come back 2 years later, you're still stronger than you were when you first started.
Right.
That's how persistent it is. That's how fundamental the change is. And that's how fundamentally important it is to understand the strength is the basis for all of this type of stuff.
Sure. Right.
It's the most effective way to spend your time if you're untrained.
Right. Right.
Right? Now what about endurance? What happens
Right.
with, so we hear this all the time, what happens with a person's endurance if they're not doing any running at all? And they haven't been doing any running, they just get stronger. What happens to their endurance? It improves.
It's going to be better, sure.
It improves because your ability to carry yourself across the earth is a function of your ability to produce force. And if your force production improves, then your endurance improves accidentally.
Right, sure. Accidentally.
Accidentally it improves.
Right.
And then you, of course, are in a better position to run more effectively after you do some running.
Sure. So if we take guys like I see guys all the time in martial arts. You know, they've been around a long time. They have a good technical base. You know, very skilled martial artists, but not necessarily genetic athletes.
Right.
And haven't really ever trained for a strength program. If they take a program like the starting strength program and they apply that in a short period of time, let's just say 6-8 months. What kind of things can those guys see since their technical skills here, and if they increase their physical attributes, their strength? I mean, we'll be looking at overall more power, more strength, more speed, more endurance, more explosiveness.
Well, it's just exactly like you would expect it to be. Technique at that level takes years and years to develop.
Right.
Takes years and years to develop this level of technique. But if strength remains undeveloped,
right. And
let's say you've got two guys that have been training martial arts for 15 years, and both of them are very proficient technically.
Right.
Let's take one of those guys and put him on a strength program.
Sure.
And leave the other one like he is.
Right.
Technique remains the same, strength went up for one guy. And we put those guys in a situation where we're not doing point karate.
Right, yeah.
We're actually grappling, we're actually sparring.
Right.
Who wins?
We're actually slamming each other on.
We're actually applying force.
Right.
In ways that count.
Right.
Who wins?
Yeah.
Well, it's not, again, this is not complicated.
Right.
This isn't complicated. This is not esoteric, arcane, weird bullshit. This is just a straightforward expression of the thing that everybody already knows. Yeah. Everything that, the guys that are the best fighters are the strongest guys. You know, now, you take a really, really strong guy that doesn't know what the hell to do.
Sure.
And you put him against somebody that's not quite as strong, that's 5 times his technical proficiency.
Yeah.
Well, we got a problem to solve here.
Sure.
But you take two guys that are of equal technical proficiency, the strongest one is going to win.
Sure.
And this is not a bizarre statement, I don't think.
No,
I don't think that anybody would find that to be an objectionable conclusion.
No, I agree. Yeah.
So the thing that a person needs to do is the thing that he can do. And if strength remains undeveloped, why?
Right.
Why would you allow it to do that? Why would you not get stronger?
Sure.
Unless you're just a lazy bastard. I can understand being a lazy bastard.
Right.
You don't want to get under the... It's more fun to spar. It's more fun to do the martial arts. But, but at some point, all athletes have to decide to go outside their sport-specific activity in order to make improvements in their ability to show effective sport-specific skills.
Absolutely.
And this is a perfect example of that kind.
Absolutely.
Now, some sports are impressively resistant to that notion.
Yes, they are.
The one we see the most around here, of course, is cycling. Those guys are not going to train. They're not going to train. They're just not going to do it. They want to be on their bike. They're not athletes. It's a recreation. It's like bowling to them. It's recreation. They want to be outside. They want to wear their little orange shirts and lycra and wear helmets and talk about gears and ride their bikes. That's fine, but don't act like you're trying to be an athlete, because an athlete prepares in every possible way to get better at the sport, and cyclists won't train.
All they'll do is cycle.
All they want to do is their sport.
Sure.
Boxing has been resistant to this in the past. I don't know that much about it, but previously boxing trainers were famous for wanting to go run and box, and that's all they wanted to do. They didn't want anybody to lift weights, because making you strong slows you down.
Yeah, that was the old theory. That's exactly right.
It's so bizarre. It's hard to even talk about that, but that's what they thought. That's what they thought. So,
but you look at professional athletes like football players and those guys, big, strong guys who sprint, incredibly fast and are explosive out of the gate. I mean, obviously, the strength does not slow you down.
It's 2012. Okay, we all know at this point that strength training is an important part of every sport. Every physical endeavor that you want to improve is improved by getting stronger, and it's not even a point of contention. Right. Now, if the cyclists want to be pig-headed about it, I'm not concerned about them, but I see a lot of resistance to this in some of the martial arts people as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a hidebound, old-fashioned deal still run by old guys that don't appreciate this extremely important aspect of physical development.
Sure.
And it needs to change.
Right.
I think the military's coming around.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of those guys are, the people I've worked with all value. If their commanding officers don't understand it, they all do.
Sure. Right.
They all do.
And if you get a grassroots movement started, eventually
it's going to. There's going to be these guys will retire, and the guys that squat 405 for 5 eventually get into command positions and understand what the fuck the deal is, because we're not wanting to make people into power lifters.
Right.
We want to make them into stronger soldiers, stronger martial artists, stronger boxers, stronger cyclists.
Sure.
We don't want to make them power lifters. No one is suggesting that level of specialization and strength. But if all you can squat is 135 for 5, you, my friend, are not very strong.
Right. Yeah.
You're not adequately strong. That's not even average strength. And the development of as much strength as you can economically jam into a few months worth of training is certainly going to pay dividends.
Long-term
dividends that will never go away.
Right.
And just being pig-headed about that is not productive.
Right. Right.
So, the point is that at some point, technical proficiency reaches 95% of its level of development.
Right.
At that point, what else can you do to improve?
Right.
Is it worth the time that it would take to achieve that last 5%? Or might it make better sense to spend the time getting strong, much stronger than you are right now, at that 95% level of technical proficiency? Right. Especially if you go ahead and admit to yourself that getting strong is not going to take you down to 75%.
Right. It doesn't.
That may be the argument. It doesn't. Getting strong does not compromise technical ability.
No, certainly not.
No. Especially if you are still practicing your sport-specific skills as the strength is developed.
Sure.
And we're not suggesting that anybody lay off while they're getting strong.
Still do all your training. Still hit the bag, hit the pads. Still grapple, whatever you got to do. Right.
Translate your newfound strength into the same level of skill that you had previous to developing the strength.
Right. Yeah.
So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have, certainly, learned a ton being here in your gym and reading your book and your forum. So if other people wanted more information,
StartingStrength.com. Rather big website, lots and lots of articles and information and interviews, and there's not any cartoons or porn or anything like that, but there's all kinds of useful information on our website. It's StartingStrength.com, and look at the resources page, and there's all kinds of information there. We have a Q&A. We have several forums on the website. My Q&A's been running now for 4.5 years, and there's a giant glut of information. All these questions have been discussed in excruciating detail, and there's lots and lots of stuff to read there.
And some interesting humor on there as well.
Oh, might be, yeah.
Might be some humor in there.
Yeah.
So now you also have some other things. You're having starting strength gyms.
Well, this is the first starting strength gym. We are in the process of developing a program whereby we would certify another gym to be a a black iron gym, and then listed on our website. We've got just in the developmental stage right now, but we're eventually hope to have a directory of places that would offer this type of environment, this type of facility where you can get an effective strength workout in if you're traveling or if you're looking for a place to train.
And I have a lot of people that come in to train with me and take private lessons and seminars and things like that from all over the country. You have people here that come to train at your gym from other parts of the world that come here
right now. Well, right now we have seminars here, 3 a year, and people come from all over the place. But we do seminars in various parts of the country. We're talking about developing a program whereby we have people come in and spend some time with us here in a residential type situation for a week at a time. That's just at its development stage right now, but we do seminars all over the country. Those of you that are interested in if you're training right now, might want to think about coming to one of our seminars. I wouldn't suggest a person that hasn't trained before come to a seminar. It assumes a certain level of baseline development before you wander into one of these things. But we're all over the country. We're all over the country, and those locations and dates and times are on our website as well.
Right. All right. Well, I appreciate all the work you've invested in me, and appreciate the time.
Thank you. Enjoyed it, Harley.
All right. Thanks, sir.
Okay.